Alright, just going to say the bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Hashem natan haTorah. Amen.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Lord God, King of the universe, who gives the Torah of truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel, and to all the people through his Son Yeshua the Messiah, Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Alright, so last time we discussed Yom Teruah. We celebrated it. Hopefully you understood a little bit more about why we celebrate it and the links that we're going on there and what we're looking forward to today. Because of the upcoming fun, we are going to be discussing Yom Kippur. Okay? Now, this is obviously a very complex thing, so I'm going to go through it as best I can. Try and make the links, try and look at the pictures, try to break this down for you. It's quite complex. But we're going to try and hit it from a few different angles today. First, let's start with, remember we drew that menorah? Okay? So we're going 1, 2, 3, no, that's not it. This one now, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we have first festival, Pesach, next one. First fruits, or depending on how you want to put it, you say interchangeable, unleavened bread. Unleavened bread. Shavuot. Teruah. Yom Kippur. And Sukkot. Remember we said that these three are in the beginning of the year. Those three are all linked. When you talk to a Jewish person and you say you are celebrating Pesach, they assume that you are celebrating all three at the same, it's part of the same link. It's all within the same 7 days. Alright? That links up with counting the Omer. From this point, well actually it's sort of in between the Shabbat. And I'm going to link them all together here, not to be technical. And you link that with the counting of the Omer. Right? Remember what we spoke about in the counting of the Omer? Jolly good, fantastic, tell me this. Alright, then we start talking about
40 days. 50 days.
Go sit in the
bed.
Alright, you link it up and it brings us to Shavuot, and then here we get the 7th month. The 7th month feast and festivals. Right? So when you look at it, this being the first day of the 7th month, this being the 10th day, and Sukkot being the fastest fingers first. Check Leviticus 23. Okay. While they're busy googling that, we're going to break down, we're going to break down Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is what? Yom means? Day. Kippur? Fish. In Hebrew, fish is done. Kippur? Okay, translated as atonement, but we're going to break this down a little bit. Alright, how many of you know what a shoresh is? Shoresh is the root word that everything gets tied back into. Okay? Most Hebrew words are traced back to a specific shoresh. The best way I can sort of illustrate this very quickly is the word lamed. Lamed. Okay? A talmid is what? Student. Okay? Lamed is learn. Alright? L-M-D, L-M-D. If those three letters link together, wherever it is in the word, you can actually trace it back that these things are actually linked together. A student learns. They actually link together in the language. So when he starts talking about a specific thing, you can actually trace it back to the shoresh, to the root, and you link in to see all the different aspects, the way it has been used throughout Scripture, so that you can get deeper. Is that making sense? Yes. Alright, it's the same when we talk about Torah and Morah, which is the feminine. Okay, sound the same. What's the shoresh? Okay, you have the same. Morah is a teacher in feminine. Torah is teaching, instruction. Something that gets derived from the word. If you take it back to the root itself is yara, which means to cast an arrow forth and hit the mark. To aim for the bullseye and hit the mark. If you follow Torah, you're aiming for perfection. Okay? So as I shoot my arrow, as I take aim, as I use what I've been given, I'm trying to hit the instruction perfectly every time. It's a different connotation to law, right? Okay? So when we start looking at the shoresh, okay, this is what we're going to look into. Are any of you lost or confused just yet? Jolly good. It's a good start. I want to show you the reason. I'm not gonna deal with this now, but I want you to just plant this in the back of your mind. All right. I'm going to look at the script first. I'm going to look at the pictures first. I'm going to show you a little bit of illustration first, and then I'm going to come back and I want you to see where that shoresh was used and in what frame it was used to give you a better understanding of what this atonement thing is about. Are you right? You with me? It's only good. I'll bust you in the first 5 minutes. All right. I want you to open up to Leviticus 16.
But I was lost downtown.
Huh?
I was lost downtown.
Now you're from there.
Here we go.
Leviticus 16, you'll notice I'm not quoting just from Leviticus. You obviously, anytime you want to find out about a basic festival, you go to Leviticus 23, right? Okay, there it is listed, the 10th day. Let me read it for you quickly. 23 verse 26. Adonai said to Moshe, the 10th day of the 7th month is Yom Kippur. You are to have a holy convocation. You are to deny yourselves and you are to bring an offering made by fire to Adonai. You are not to do any kind of work on that day because it is Yom Kippur to make atonement for you before Adonai your God. Anyone who does not deny himself on that day will be cut off from his people. And anyone who does any kind of work on that day, I will destroy from among his people. Anybody think that God is not serious about this day? Okay? You are not to do any kind of work. It's reiteration. It is a permanent regulation through all your generations. No matter where you live, it will be for you a Shabbat of complete rest. And you are to deny yourselves, and you are to rest on Shabbat from evening of the 9th of the month until the following evening. Okay. So he proclaims, he says, the instruction is you are to deny yourself. You are to rest. It's a Shabbat. While we're there, what does Shabbat mean? It's a day of rest. You guys know the Paleo Hebrew?
Oh yes, fluent.
Yes, very good. When you look at the Paleo Hebrew, it's basically the first where you go back, further back. We've got obviously our script now. We've got text. We've got cursive. But before it was, each letter was a picture. Think of hieroglyphics. Every ancient language starts out that way. All right? When you break up the word Shabbat, this is what it means in the Paleo. So to keep Sabbath as a sign and a symbol. His days, he says, return to my covenant. Keep my days. This is not just a marriage thing. This is the symbol of what you're saying. Okay? Remember, let me rephrase it. That was said really badly. When you look at Shabbat being the symbol of the Ten Commandments, okay? Because we understand it as a wedding contract, as when you got this ketubah, all right? Ketubah is a wedding contract in between. The Ten Commandments was, if you break it down nicely and the way it was phrased in, it uses a lot of wedding talk in it. You guys will hear me talk about Exodus 19 quite a lot, right? It's one of my favorite verses. It says, or portions, it says, you've seen I have lifted you up on the wings of eagles and I've carried you unto myself. Now if you obey, if you listen and obey, then you will become my peculiar treasure. Then you will be my people. So the condition is obey. Then he goes into all of the different instructions. And people just think he mentions the Ten Commandments at Sinai. It doesn't. It actually goes from Exodus 19 all the way to Exodus 32. Right? A whole bunch of stuff gets happening. He's up there for 40 days. Right? If he was just writing down 10 things, actually God wrote them down. So what was he doing there for 40 days? Okay? We start to understand that Torah was given at Mount Sinai. That is a tradition, that is a belief, because he was there for 40 days. He must have been writing something down.
Can I add something?
Please.
It's not that God wanted only to speak to Moses. It's that the people, God would have carried on giving his full Torah. But the people said, no, let Moses go.
Yeah, absolutely. They didn't like it. That God's voice kind of freaked them out, so they thought, let us have someone in between us instead. Okay? In my mind, kind of sad. Right? You shouldn't have to go to anybody for your relationship with God. You should focus so much on your relationship that you should have a one-on-one connection. Right? You don't have to run to... You can get people to pray with you. You can get people to walk with you. You can get people to glean from. That's fine. There is a rabbi-disciple principle that runs throughout Scripture. Okay? All the way back, we're not just talking about Yeshua and his disciples. I'm talking about Moses and Joshua. All right? You learn from the people that have gone ahead of you. That way, when you don't understand something, or you need wisdom, you need counsel, you need something, you got someone to go to. But don't think that excuses you from going straight to God first. He's the one who needs to answer the questions. He's the one that needs to be there. You need to rely on him, not on man. Okay? So, he gets into this place, and the Shabbat, for me, is that. For every covenant, there is a sign and a symbol, and he says, if you keep my Shabbatot, plural, my Sabbaths, if you keep my Sabbaths, then you're showing the world who I am. It is a sign between you and I. Now we understand those who have been married, one day you went down an aisle and then the lady decided to walk down the aisle, and then eventually you said some nice things to each other and then you walked away with a ring. Most of you can't remember what you said on the day. That's normal, don't worry. You're sitting over there, you don't know what you promised. Okay? Middle Eastern custom, they wrote it down so you couldn't forget. Nice, eh? And then you would have the copy of those contracts. But you would still have a sign and a symbol. God's sign that you belong to him is keeping his Sabbaths. You're saying above all else, it's you and me. And how will the world know that you belong to him? Keep his sign. What are you declaring? I'm taken. I belong to someone else. Alright? So it's a big thing to God. It is the... And again, we can have a little back and forth about this. I like the illustration because if you see me wearing my wedding ring on Shabbat, but when you find me out in the street just before I'm about to go to work, I do that. How many of you are going to be very happy?
Do not spend the much.
Right. Okay? What am I saying? I'm saying I'm available. So you can't have one section where you are in the world and you belong to the world, and then you have, no, church is for church, shul is for shul, but when I'm out there, you don't mix the two. God has a slightly different viewpoint on that. Okay? If I need to explain that, comes to me. So God tells us to deny ourselves, and there are a few different interpretations of what that means. Deny and afflict ourselves, right? So the sages went back and they looked at the word oni, and they say, no, that means to fast because of other places that it's mentioned in Scripture. And they also went back to the book of Jonah. So what does it mean? What pleased God when there was destruction coming? Jonah went out and he proclaimed to Nineveh, he said, look, destruction is coming unless you make teshuvah, unless you change your ways. Remember, Nineveh was where? Right, north, right? Assyria, capital. Alright? These people were not nice people. Jonah didn't want to go because they were warmongers. They were ready. They were building up. He didn't want them to be saved. God said, go and save them anyway. Go and proclaim the word. And he went and he started shouting it, and they actually listened to him, which is really weird because you've got a whole bunch of Jewish prophets talking to Judah, talking to Israel, shouting at them, bringing signs and wonders, and they completely ignored every prophet. One prophet goes north to a Gentile city and he goes, you're all going to be destroyed unless you do something. Then they all stop what they're doing. And the king, he gets word of it and he says, let's proclaim a fast. The king stops and he hears this guy and he says, let no food nor water enter your mouth, and you will petition this God. Perhaps he will relent and he won't destroy us. And we know the story, right? Jonah went out and he said, yeah, I'm just going to sit here, I'm going to get comfortable, and I'm just going to wait for that Sodom and Gomorrah moment, put on my sunglasses because this destruction is going to be spectacular, and nothing happens. Why?
Because they repeated.
Because they heard and they started to stop and consider. They stopped everything. Like I said to you guys before, when you do a full fast, it is very strange because all of a sudden you have a lot of free time on your hands. You're not at work. You're not worried about how many cups of coffee you're going to have. You're not worried about what's for breakfast, what's snack, what's lunch, what's snacking and planning dinner. All of a sudden you've got nothing to do. And I think that's the hardest part. Because he kind of stops you and he says, put on the brakes. I want you to focus on me. In Jewish tradition, they call this link between Yom Kippur and Yom Teruah the 10 days of awe. Now remember, Elul has happened here just before. You fixed up with everybody else around you. Your friends shouldn't have any problem with you. You should be free of that. But don't worry if you missed Elul, you still got a couple of more days and Yom Kippur is coming. Remember what Messiah said. He said, if your brother has something against you, leave your offering at the altar and go and make right. Okay? Nice parental illustration. Your one child smacks the other child in the head and then comes running to you and says, Daddy, give me kisses. First parental response, I saw what you did, go and say sorry. If you don't fix up there, it's not up. So if your heavenly Father is watching his children slap each other and then want to go to Daddy and say, please help me, I love you Daddy, please look after me, please, please, please. He's going to stop you and say, if you cannot play nice, don't come talk to me. Be very careful. God looks at your relationships and he looks at the fruit in between you, because that affects your relationship between you. We've done there's a verse in the marriage course that we brought up. It says, if you, paraphrasing, if you neglect or you abuse your spouse, it says, your prayers will be blocked. Now, if God is that serious about your relationship, because remember, marriage is a picture of the type of intimacy he wants between us and him. Don't let anything get in the way of that. Don't get your pride involved. Don't get all of your hang-ups. How many of you have made the tough choice of having to repair things that have been going on for far too long this year? Did anybody get that poke and prod that God said, no, you have to fix up with a whole bunch of people you never really want to fix up? Right. And when you go through that, how do you feel after you went through that? Does anybody feel sad or do they feel relieved? Relieved. Right. God just set you free, you obeyed, and there was restitution. Now you are free to move forward when before you were stuck in the past. Although this stuff is hard, it is necessary because He understands us better than we understand us. Guys, Yom Kippur is the culmination of what we should be doing here. If I realize I'm not such a good person here, I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, I snap, I'm sarcastic, I roll my eyes when I shouldn't, I'm disrespectful. And you know what the nice thing about this day is God doesn't, He'll highlight specific things for you, but He doesn't get you to announce you or confess you. He gets the fellowship to stand up together and say, we have done. We have done. Because as a collective, we stand before Him as well. Okay? We need to be accountable to each other. We need to stand in the gap for each other. We need to intercede for each other. We need to be there for each other. And it's tough. Family is messy. You know, it's nice when you go to a church that's got 1,000 or 10,000 members. Yeah, you can pick and choose who you want and you can spend time and you can ignore them. You go to these big shuls and I promise you, well, okay, they like to isolate themselves, but they've got a different mentality. Jewish people are completely different. They'll shout at each other, but you make one little snide remark at one Jewish and then it's us and them very quickly. There's a sense of community there. Something that we miss. So what happens is we go sit in our fellowships, we go sit in whatever, and we make our little divide, and we say, no, these are my people. It doesn't work. God goes, no, these are your people. What are you doing with it? This is family. If anybody's going to pick anybody up, it should start here. If anybody should help anybody, it should start here. We shouldn't have to go outside of fellowship. Because there should be a communal, collective heart beating as one. And if you can get family instilled here, you can link up with other families and realize you're part of the same greater family, and you can, instead of looking at one fellowship against another, you can actually go, well, it's family. What do they need? How can we help? You need to get out of the little box. We need to look collectively. And in these 10 days, you are scrutinizing who you are and what you've done over the last year. Now listen to me, this isn't a panel beating session. If you've never done a Yom Kippur service with us, we're going to go through the Ochet prayer. I'm going to send it out via a link. It's tough. Because you realize you've made a whole bunch of mistakes. And you realize you're struggling. And you realize that you're not perfect. But it's not that God is beating you down. It's that He's showing you where you really are so that He can build you up. He's investing in you and He's saying, okay, well, fine. You had that doozy. You went through that rough patch. You're better than that. Come on, let's go. I'm going to test you to see where you really are. He said, I tested their hearts in the wilderness. Anybody think it's rather comfortable to walk around in 48-degree heat? I've been there in summer. It's not nice. When 4 o'clock is the hottest part of the day, the sun only sets at 9. The party is real. Are you willing to follow me even though it's difficult? Are you willing to understand? Are you looking at who I am, not what you want? How many of you realize that you've got into a relationship with your own idea of who that person is, and you try and mold them and change them instead of seeing them for who they really are? How's that worked out for you? I'm just going to change you a little bit. 5 years later, I just don't understand why they don't want to change, because you're actually trying to change who they are. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You cannot do anything. God will change. But if you're trying to change their personality, you're fighting an uphill battle. It's going to be very dangerous and very painful, and you're going to cry a lot. You see, we've got this idea of what God should be to us and not who He is to us. And it normally starts off with how awesome we are and how He needs to step in the gap every time we need help. Let me tell you, it's very close to worshipping a genie instead of worshipping the Father. You can't rub a lamp and expect Him to jump every time you tell Him to. How many of you realized when you went up to Daddy and said, Daddy, I need you to do this, and He told you, no. But Daddy, you don't love me. No, I love you, that's why I'm not doing it. But Daddy, just put this ladder so I can jump off the roof into the pool. No. But Daddy, you suck. Welcome to your relationship with your dad. When you don't get your way with God, you grumble, you moan, and we hide in the corner and we cower, and then we start to question His love. But His love goes further than your likes and your wants. He goes into the need and the desires of His heart first. But in this time, you're looking at yourself and you're questioning everything that I've done. And you need to start fixing up. We can hurt ourselves. Man, I say this generally, and I'm saying very personally about me. We can be really stupid and hurt ourselves. I want what I want. Sometimes the worst thing that God can give you is what you pray for. He's not to please you, He's there to love you. I want you guys to take the time and really just be open with Him. And you just tell Him where you've fallen short, where you're hurting, why you're grumbling, why you're struggling. Just be honest with Him. And I'm going to back this up scripturally in a minute. But this is not just something that we have to do and it's a fast day. It's deeper than that. Now I'm going to read through Leviticus 16 and we're going to just break this down. This is the portion where he talks about what the high priest and what's supposed to be done on the day. And you'll start to understand why it's so important. Adonai spoke to Moshe after the death of Aaron's two sons, when they tried to sacrifice before Adonai died. Nice intro. You know, Aaron, remember that time when your children passed away because they were being silly? I need you to do something for me. You guys remember why Aaron's sons passed? It says strange fire. Okay? There's a possibility that we don't know where they got their fire from, so maybe they just took it from outside. Some guys go as far as to say maybe they took it from a different altar. Because remember, God lit the flames in the beginning, and He said you're not allowed to let that go out, you're supposed to just rekindle it the entire time. Even when they moved, they would put it in the censer, the prayer censer, and then they would keep a few coals alive there, and when they came in, they would put it back on the altar, and then it would just pass to the same flame. Okay? This is what God has lit. And it says they brought in strange fire, but in another portion it says, when they come in, make sure you do not come in with any intoxicating liquor. Hang on a second. So maybe there was too much party and none of you just missed it. When you step out in front of me, be very careful of why you're there. This is a big, big, big deal. Because it just doesn't affect you. Keep that in the back of your mind. Adonai said to Moshe, Tell your brother Aaron not to come and just any time into the holy place beyond the curtain, in front of the ark cover which is on the ark, so that you will not die, because I appear in a cloud over the ark cover. Alright, so we've got some pretty pictures here. Those pictures help everybody. This is the curtain. It's called the parochet. Okay, it separates, we can say separates without getting too technical, between the Holy of Holies and the holy place. Where the menorah, the table of showbread, and the altar of incense, they led into the ark. Notice you will have two, what they call two cherubim, as was depicted. Remember, Moses was given, he says, what you see in heaven, make a replica on earth. So, when you look at those visions in heaven, you see God's throne and they're flanked by cherubim, right? Okay? And he's seated in between the two. So yeah, you have a picture of his throne. Obviously we know that God's not bound by a little curtain and sitting on this specific piece of gold. We know that he said his presence will be there. He rests his feet there. Okay? But he appears above the ark in between the cherubim. He says, as in heaven. Okay? So what he's showing you is what's taking place in the heavenlies. And what you're doing has spiritual application. Alright? So he comes in, remember, the whole top lid was knocked out of one piece of gold. And inside of the box, what's in the box? Aaron's staff, the tablets for the covenant, and the manna, an omer full of manna. Why those three things? Okay, let's start with Aaron's rod. Why was that important? Right, number one, remember they challenged him and then he came up to them and he said, bring all their staffs as a symbol of their authority, and he laid them down and he says, the one which buds. Now that's a crazy thing, right? It's a picture of the resurrection. Okay? So the high priest gets chosen by God's authority. And through that authority, something dead comes to life and bears fruit. Talks about Messiah, right? Okay, this is what's going to happen. And then they talk about the Omer of manna. Why?
God's provision.
God's provision. Okay? Every day you will go gather. I will be your daily bread. I am the bread that gives life. Look to me. But on Shabbat, have a rest. You will have enough on the sixth day to see you through. Trust in that. And the Ten Commandments we spoke about? The wedding contract. Notice he has both copies that get put in the same place. Normally in that culture, in that time, one copy would go to the person, another copy would go to a person, and then they would lock it away in their safe places so that they can come back and say, please look at number 3.3, you promised to do that, you're not doing that, now you're nullifying the covenant. Fix up. God says, we'll take both of them, we'll put them in the same place. Because where I am, you will need to be as well. You will be as well. Okay, it's a nice thing, and when we look at the way the ark was made very quickly, it was overlaid with gold. Gold being a reflection of what? What does it mean biblically? Righteousness. And it's covered with what? The gold covered what?
Cedar wood.
Acacia wood. And acacia wood is a very prickly, very slow-growing tree that they found in the wilderness. Welcome Israel. Alright? Needed to be shaped, needed to be molded, and needed to be covered on his righteousness, and God sits on top of that. I've chosen you, I've given you authority, I will provide for you, I will be your daily bread, I will be your resurrection, and guess what else? You are my bride, you are my beloved. And he sits on that. This is where you go in. No one comes in there except for once a year. Welcome to the inner sanctuary of the Father, and look at what his heart's saying. You have been chosen. You're going to bear much fruit. There's going to be this massive resurrection. It's going to be insane. Every day there will be bread of life. Don't worry about the manna. I've got you. And the fullness of that heart is, never forget who you belong to. But thereon, when you come in, you only come in once a year. And listen to the pictures. Okay? Don't get hung up on the definitions. Hebrew is always pictures. Okay? Comes into beyond at just any time in the holy place into the curtain in front of the ark cover, which is on the ark, and he will not bite, because I appear in the cloud in the ark, above the ark cover. Verse 3. Here is how Aaron is to enter the holy place, with a young bull as a sin offering, as a ram and a burnt offering. So he says before he comes in, he needs to do what? Takes care of his own sin first. Okay? And the ram, for what?
Sending offering.
It says before he comes in, he needs to offer a burnt offering. The term in Hebrew is oleh. Oleh, when you go to Hebrew, it means you make aliyah, to go up to. So everything is burnt up and goes in. It talks about the entire dedication of the animal. It costs me something and I'm dedicated to it. I take the best of my flock. I take the best bull. And the high priest has to atone for himself first, and he has to be completely dedicated before he can deal with everything else. Think of Messiah, think of Yeshua. Okay? Yeah. He used to put on a holy linen tunic, have the linen shorts next to his bare flesh, have the linen sash wrapped around him, and wearing the linen turban, they are the holy garments. He used to bathe his body in water and put them on. We've got two pictures. Normal high priestly vestments, breastplate of righteousness, the different colors, everything in between, the crown. It says, whenever you appear before me, doing the inner court thing. Not so much here with the picture drawn with the thing going on. Because if he appears before God, he is to look like this. Completely white. White is a symbol of what? Purity. God's heart is that you come clean. You take care of your sin, you come before me, and you have got a specific job to do. Exhibit A, you're special and you get to wear bling. Yeah, for you. Once a year, forget your bling, and you realize it's not about you. You've got a job to do. Okay? So he takes off his normal attire. And he says he has to wash his body. Mikveh. Where we get baptism from. When you look at a mikveh, a traditional bath looks like this. I'm going to draw it from the top view. You would come in from the door. You see stairs going down. And then you see a pool over here. And you have a sort of partition going in there. You would go in, roof covering, door closed. When you went up to the temple, there was a guy who would sit and he would take a peek and he would look in. Oh, right? And he would see that you're completely mikvah. Go all the way down, immerse yourselves and come up. And you would do this with nothing between you. So no clothes, anything, but you were in an enclosed room. You would go down dirty, become completely immersed and come up clean. So it is about coming in complete alignment. I've dealt with my sin, I'm completely dedicated and my body's been washed. As I'm washing my body, I'm concentrating on me. On who I am, on what I'm doing, on my hands clean. Who may ascend the hills of the Lord? He who has. Before God appeared at Sinai, he said, wash yourself, wash your clothes, get ready. God doesn't want uncleanliness. What's unclean? Well, that's a whole teaching, right? You have to go in accordance to what Torah says is unclean. And he says sin defiles. Okay? He used to take from the community of the people of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering and 1 for a ram for a burnt offering. Aaron is to present the bull for the sin offering, which is for himself, to make atonement for himself and his household. His household is included under his authority. He is to take 2 goats and place them before Adonai at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And Aaron is to cast lots for the 2 goats. 1 lot is for Adonai and the other for Azazel. Sorry guys. Nice. By the way, everything's fine. Just give me a second. Everybody's very concerned. concerned about their life. Alright, so he goes up to Azazel, and one lot is for Adonai, 2 specific things. So he's dealt with sin offering, he's dealt with Oleh offering, there's been a mikvah, and then there's goats. One is for Adonai, and one is for Azazel. Now there's a whole bunch of weird Jewish traditions about Azazel. Some people believe that, well, scripture says, you'll read in a minute, that it just talks about going out into the wilderness and then he's going to die. Some people believe it was a cliff face, they would take this goat and they would fling it off, and that would be the end of it. They even go into the weird and wonderful things that Azazel is a weird half-goat demon thing that gets to eat the goat. I don't buy into that, because God would be saying, there we go, feed the demons, thanks very much, and it's part of my sacrificial system. No, not so much. So the picture is that he's going to take it away, okay? Aaron is to present the bull of the sin offering for himself. He will make atonement for himself and his household. He is to slaughter the bull on the sin offering, which is for himself. He is to take a censer full of burning coals from the altar before Adonai, which is hands full of ground fragrant incense. Bring it inside the curtain. What does incense represent? Prayers. So you go before me, once you've taken part of your sin, then your prayers will lead you in. It is your covering, it is a blanket. He is to put the incense on the fire before Adonai, so that the cloud which the incense will cover the ark cover, which is the ark of the testimony, in order that he not die. So before you appear to God, make sure your prayers go before you, otherwise you die. What is that saying about it? Why is that verse there? How many of you believe that when you see God in your physical form and you see him in his fullness, you will live? No. So what is he does? He gives you a picture of, this will be your covering, this will be your protection in between. Now it's funny that this picture of intercession happens a lot before God appears in places. Think about Abraham and Sodom and Gomorrah. What saved people there? Huh?
Intercession.
Okay, in many cases. And again, when you go look at Hebrews is quite complex. Okay, but it's very much the case of looking at who is the new high priest, which temple are you making an offering, which is the sin offering, and what does Yeshua do? He's busy interceding. Because there's a great accuser who says you're worth nothing. And Messiah is saying, no. You see the blood, they've been covered. You can't look at the things that they've done already, because I've washed it away. They've dealt with it. But there's a key thing that you need to do. He is to take some of the bull's blood and sprinkle it with his finger to the ark cover toward the east. And in front of the ark cover, he is to sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Okay, very lots of pictures today. Okay?
Sorry, when is that on the sin offering?
Yeah. And he's going to do the same thing for the goat. Okay? This is where the menorah was, and the table of showbread, and the altar of incense, and this is where the ark is. Okay? So sprinkle it on the east side of the ark 7 times. Okay? We're going to draw pictures afterwards, okay? So just bear with me. Next is to slaughter the goat for the sin offering, for which is for the people. Bring the blood inside the curtain and do with its blood as he did with the bull's blood, sprinkling it in the ark cover and in front of the ark cover. He will make atonement for the holy place. Listen carefully. He will make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanliness of the people of Israel and because of their transgressions, all their sins. He is to do the same for the tent of meeting, which there with them, right in the middle of their uncleanliness. So the point of this thing is you need to get right, high priest. Make sure that your sins are covered. Then you will atone for. And it's not just for the people. He says, you atone for everything that represents me. Your Mishkan. So the altars need to be cleansed. The tabernacle needs to be cleansed. The Ark of the Covenant needs to be cleansed. Every aspect of this, because it's dwelling in the midst of uncleanliness. Now let me ask you something. God knew you all were broken, right, when He found you. He knew that you've got problems, you've got issues, you've been hurt before. He knew that you're not perfect, right? Yes? And yet He chose you anyway. How many of you people struggle with that? Remember what Paul said? In my body I see two laws. One is the perfect law of God, the one which I should do, that I choose with my mind, and the other one is the law of sin and the flesh. It says, I know what I want to do, but what I end up doing is not the same. Oh, wretched creature who can save. How do I get past this? Well, it's very simple. Once a year, God says, even though you're unclean, even though you're broken, even though you're going to make mistakes, God willing, as you grow, there'll be less mistakes. I'm going to send someone and I'm going to put something in place so that you understand intercession, you understand cleansing, you understand forgiveness. You understand what I'm doing. God reaches out His hand to clean you. On His day, His time, you will be atoned for. I need to make that clear. And listen up. No one is to be present in the tent of meeting from the time he enters to the holy place to make atonement until the time he comes out, having made atonement for himself, for his household, and for the entire community of Israel. So now it's not just about cleansing the place, now it's about cleansing the people. High priest, are you perfect? No. This is Aaron we're talking about. I think this guy must cringe every time this day over here comes by. Remember, I just took those earrings and then the golden calf went poof. That was his excuse. The golden calf is a symbol of which god of Egypt? Slave god, Hathor. So, when they were struggling with God, and picture this in your head, you're sitting at the base of a mountain that's got a big cloud cover and thunder and lightning, and you've just heard the voice of God. Moses goes up and he disappears, and it's been like 10, 15 days, and we think, oh no, he's dead. Made for us a God so we can leave, so we can worship Him. Why is the mountain not good enough right now? No, because you want that genie. Well, you know, he's busy doing his thing, but I'm sick and tired of waiting around. Someone said promised land and I've got money, let's go. Never mind the wedding contract. Never mind this time when you can sit with Him as He's manifested Himself in a way that does not happen for thousands of years. Sometimes you just got to stop and be in the moment. And you're sitting there and this mountain is shaking and Moses is up and he's speaking to God. And you want an Egyptian copy. Make no mistake, this was not idolatry. Idolatry is when you make an idol and you worship a different God. They said, no, worship this God who brought us out of the land of Egypt. This is the God who brought you out of Egypt. But it's an Egyptian God. They used earrings, which was a symbol of their slavery. In God's viewpoint, this is committing adultery on honeymoon. And then Aaron, what happens? 3,000 people die. Aaron, did you make the calf? And he saw 3,000 people die. Granted, they made their choice. When Moses drew a sign in the land and they came up there with swords good and they were walking to the camp, I don't see that they were just cutting everybody down who looked left, right and center. It wasn't a demolition. Out of over 2.5 million people, only 3,000 died. But those 3,000, I believe, were adamant in where they were standing. You can keep your God, you can keep your ways. Me, I'm here, I'm going to do it my way. And God says, not in my camp. Egyptians died to set you free. If you were just going to go back to Egypt, their lives went. You're making yourself like Pharaoh. Pharaoh's arrogance, Pharaoh's pride cost him his nation, his crown, and his son. You want to do the same. And Aaron comes up and he has to take a bull. And he has to use that for atonement for himself first. There's an amazing transformation that happens here when you look at it very carefully of the way Aaron's life plays out. In the beginning it was like all about Moses and Aaron was there to help him, and then he makes this golden calf, and then afterwards it says Aaron did everything that Adonai told him to do. He understood something that all went all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Disobedience brought death. Obedience brings life. If I do my job properly, my household will be safe. I will be safe. The community of Israel will be safe. But most of all, Adonai can dwell. And if Adonai is here, what does it matter? It doesn't matter if you have plenty Bibles in your house. If God is not there, you have a problem. It doesn't matter if you're sitting over there and you go out and you do whatever you want, the way you want to do it, when you want to do it. You're living in the world. If God is not God in your life, there is a problem. You can't put him on a shelf and pull him back every time you feel like it. He's bigger than that. He expects more than that. A wedding is something, or a marriage is not something you enter into lightly. It's something you take seriously. Something that you understand is a lifelong commitment. That's a fight sometimes. But you're there and you fight. God expects you to fight. And he's just giving you a massive tool. He's just like, yeah, I know you're broken. I know you're hurting. I know you're going to make mistakes, but I'm going to give you one day to do a spiritual spring clean. And we're just going to wipe everything you've done for the last year. We're going to get rid of it all, and we're going to start afresh every year. Because I know people, guys, we barely say sorry for the things we've done in the day. How many of you make an actual confession of your sin every time you muck up? Most of us cringe and then we go, oh, I shouldn't have done that. And then we carry on. It's holding you back. It's hurting your Father. And he's saying, please, once a year, just come and sit at my feet and say, I've messed up. I'm broken. I need help. You know what the beauty of it is? Atonement will be made for himself, for his household, and for his entire community of Israel. It will be. It will take place. Not if, not maybe, it will. Then he is to go out to the altar that is before Adonai and make atonement for it. He is to take some of the bull's blood and some of the goat's blood and put it on all the horns of the altar. The horns facing outward is a symbol of his strength. In his mercy he is graceful and is pointing away. He is to sprinkle some of the blood on his fingers 7 times, thus purifying it and setting it apart from the uncleanliness of the people of Israel. That altar deals with your sin all the time. When he is finished atoning for the holy place, for the tent of meeting, for the altar, he is to present the live goat. Aaron is to lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the transgressions, crimes, and the sins of the people of Israel. It doesn't mean put hands lightly, it means lay on. I must understand through my faith. I believe that there is a transference taking place that I don't really understand now. But as much as I press onto this goat, and as much as I confess, it doesn't matter if you sin privately, public confession is what's required. And God's nice again because He puts you in a whole room with the people that are broken and He gets you to confess all the things together. But you've got to say it. You can blame Hasatan only so long. You can blame your friends only so long. You can blame your dog, your work, the people next door. At the end of the day, it is you and your choice alone. You have a choice to make. You have to take it and you have to say, I'm broken, I need fixing, that was wrong. And if you can do that, He says you will be cleansed. He is to put them on the head of the goat and send it away into the desert. That's the one to Azazel. With the man appointed for the purpose, the goat will bear all the transgressions away to some isolated place, and he is to let the goat go in the desert. Aaron is to go back into the tent of meeting, he is to remove the linen garments, he put on when he entered into the holy place, and he is to leave them there. Then he is to bathe his body, mikvah again, in the holy place, put on other clothes, come out, offer the burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, thus make atonement for himself and for the people. He is to make the fat of the sin offering go up and the smoke of the altar. The man who led the goat for Azazel is to wash his clothes, bathe his body in water, afterwards he may return to the camp. The bull for the sin offering and the goat offering for the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement for the holy place, is to be carried outside the camp. There they are to burn it up completely, their hides, their meat, their dung, everything. The person burning them is to wash their clothes, bathe his body in water, afterwards he may return to the camp. It is to be a permanent regulation for you that on the 10th day of the 7th month you are to deny yourselves and not do any kind of work, both the citizen and the foreigner living with you. On this day, atonement will be made for you to purify you. You will be clean before Adonai from all your sins. It is a Shabbat of complete rest for you. You are to deny yourselves. This is a permanent regulation. The Kohen anointed and consecrated to be the Kohen in the Father's place, will make the atonement. He will put on the linen garments, the holy garments. He will make atonement for the especially holy place. He will make atonement for the tent of meeting, the altar. He will make atonement for the Kohanim and the people of the community. This is a permanent regulation. He is to make atonement for the people of Israel because of all of their sins once a year. Moshe did as outlined. How many times did you read permanent there? How many times does permanent go with atonement?
All the time.
You see, God's heart is, again, I need to re-establish you. You're broken, you need help. And let me give you something here that God really helped me with. You can't fix you. This isn't about you trying to fix you. This is not about you beating yourself up. This is about you acknowledging where you are so that you can move forward. This is about you taking that broken piece and giving it to Adonai and saying, Abba, I don't want to do this anymore. Change me so that I won't make that mistake again. And that's it. It is about acknowledging that you're broken. You're acknowledging that that's a problem for you and lifting it up and giving it to Him and saying, stick that on the tree with Yeshua, I don't want it anymore. When you hold on to your sin because of what you want to do, that will fester and that will break you. Let it go. Move forward. You guys have any questions up until this point?
It's not really a question. It's I also think that we shouldn't leave it as an excuse to only deal with things once a year. It should be a continual check of our hearts. And this is a thing that we take very serious. Because like you're saying, you get upset in the traffic. You get angry. Do you actually repent of that? So there's these things that sometimes we don't deal with properly. But it should be a thing that we try to work on more and more. That we are always in right standing with Him.
You'll notice once you go through it all, once you realize you don't want to fix up with so many people again and again and again, right? So your accounts become shorter. Same thing with God. If you take care about it now, you won't have to deal with it later. What happens when you upset Daddy? What do you normally do? Hide. Hiding will not help you. Get back to the Father's feet so He can fix you. Running helps no one. And He says this time of year, please come. Let me do this. Let Him do this for you. Now we're looking at these things, and obviously there's a lot of different aspects that we're going to look at here. Okay, the sin offering that is coming to take place. We know that Yeshua was our sin offering. Okay, I'm going to open up some questions or some scriptures and verses that we're going to touch on very quickly. We have two goats that go out. Now tradition had it that to identify the goat that went to Azazel, they would put a red crimson cord around it. Say, we're going to separate you and then you take it out. Okay? We know that Yeshua was our scapegoat. He took our sins as far away from us as possible. Says, I'll remove your sins as far as the east is from the west. Sprinkle it on the east. If the goat is going this way and the altar is this way, what is he saying? I don't see that anymore. Okay? And it's funny that they use a red stripe. Now Jewish tradition has this thing going. And it sort of comes into, it ties in quite nicely with that scripture. That although your sins were as scarlet, they will become. And it said up until the point of a specific date, which I'm going to read you a section now out of it's actually mentioned in the Talmud. Up until that point, they knew that it turned white. And the scapegoat never came back. Okay, there were sections where they actually believed that the scapegoat actually came back into the city. Something you don't want to happen. Your sins have revisited you. Not that you can take it back out again. Right? But I want you to read something. I want to read something here. Okay? It's from the Babylonian Talmud. It's Yoma 39b. 40 years before the temple was destroyed, roughly the time of 30 AD, the chosen lot was not picked with the right hand, which is the strong side, nor did the crimson stripe turn white. Oh wait, I forgot to mention something. They would take a piece of that scarlet thread and they would actually tie it on the doorpost. Right? So that when the goat left, that's what they would see turn white. Okay? Nor did the westernmost lights burn, and the doors of the temple's holy place swung open by themselves. Temple. Until Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai spoke, saying, O most holy place, why have you become disturbed? I know full well that the destiny will be destruction, for the prophet Zechariah ben Iddo had already spoken regarding you, saying, Open the doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour your cedars. Zechariah 11 verse 1. All of a sudden, trusting in the animal sacrifice didn't work. Now you go in there and they're like, but why? Oh no. It's a very interesting thing. You go to the Temple Institute, they'll tell you that the second temple was destroyed because lots of infighting. We were not a unit. No, the second temple was destroyed because you missed Messiah. Oh, it's for you. And you have this separation now where God sends them a message in a way they can only understand. I'm holding you accountable for your sins because you think a goat is going to get it done. You're trampling the blood of the one who took away your sin. Okay? I find that very interesting. I want you guys to quickly turn up. Let's look at some New Testament references here. Man, can you go to Romans 3, verse 25? Romans 3, verse 25 to 27. Oh, my gracious. I mean. 1 Peter 3. Oh, you win. All right. 1 Peter 3, Romans 3, verses 25. I'm going to read 25 to 27. 1 Peter 3, verse 18. All right, let me read Romans. God put Yeshua forward as a kapara, as an offering for sin, through his faithfulness in respect to the bloody sacrificial death. This vindicated God's righteousness because in his forbearance he had passed over Pesach. Okay, death will not enter into your house. Will neither punishment nor nourishment the sins the people had committed in the past. And it vindicates his righteousness in the present age by showing that he is righteous himself and is also the one who makes people righteous on the ground of Yeshua's faithfulness. So believing that a goat has taken away your sin, we believe that Yeshua has taken away our sin, right? That's what he's saying. But he is that offering. You got 1 Peter there. Please read from 18 to the end of the thing, to the end of the chapter.
Okay, for Christ also suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but made alive by the Spirit, by whom also we went and preached to the spirits in prison. And formerly were disobedient when once the divine long-suffering waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was being prepared, in which a few, that is 8 souls, were saved through water. There is also an antitype which now saves us, baptism, not the removal of the filth of the flesh, but the answer of good conscience towards God, through the resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God, angels and authorities and powers having been made subject to him.
So once the offering was done, he sat down at the right hand of the power. He does not have to do this. If you go and do a study on the book of Hebrews, it goes in this whole thing, like I said. It talks about the high priest being after the order of Melchizedek, about his authority, about once he's the offering in fullness, he sat down at the right hand of God because the job is done. He doesn't need to make a re-offering, but that blood is a continual covering for you. It is an eternal sacrifice. But you need to take hold of it first. Listen to me. You cannot have the blood of Yeshua and not apply it. And Regan sent me a very interesting clip about a guy who was talking, it was with Reinhard Bonke. The guy would come, an atheist came up to him and they had a discussion and he said, he says, I don't believe, believe in Christ. Because, paraphrasing, I'll send the clip out, it's quite funny. Because there's still so much brokenness in the world and there's still so much things are going wrong. So it says in the same vein, he says, well then soap doesn't exist. Because people are still unclean and they have to do it. And he says, it doesn't help if you do not apply the soap, you're still going to be dirty. You need to grab hold of it and you need to cover yourself to make you clean. Same applies for the blood of Yeshua. You have to reach out, you have to take hold of it, and you have to confess your sins to make that offering stand. God willing, every year you go forward, you will have less to confess, or you will have a completely different set of issues than when you started with. That's called growth. Guys, you'll find out when you're beginning in your walk, you will make certain mistakes. And the longer you walk, those baby mistakes are not so much there. Now you're making different ones. It's like trying to do, grade 8 maths and getting the basics wrong. And then God says, no, this is your test, this is your building, this is how we're going to get you right, this is where we're going, this is where we're going. So that you can eventually get to grade 12 and you can exactly do those sums. But if you don't have the foundation, you're never going to get there. So no matter where you are, just take and you stop and you look back at how far God's brought you. If you have been closer to God and been more obedient at other times than where you are now, that's called backsliding. Acknowledge where you are and start back up the mountain. This thing is for you. It is a time that you can just stop and see where you are. A snapshot in time. Am I where I should be? If not, Abba's going to get me back there. But I need to do my part. Okay? 2 things I want to discuss before we close. Very quickly. It's funny when you look at this layout that all the temples in that were facing east, right? When you look at the Garden of Eden, and when it talks about them being kicked out, they put 2 cherubim on the east gate to stop you from coming into the presence of God, because you walked away from the tree of life. You cannot go and partake of it now because you will sin for eternity. That's God's heart. I will not let you be broken forever. Now it's funny when you look at the Mishkan, that when you look at this tabernacle, the door itself, here we go. The door itself has, stand to be corrected, cherubim on it. And then when you go into the curtains, and on the inside there, it is as if you're coming closer and closer to the presence of where you should be, living in one flesh or walking with God forever. You definitely have cherubim over there. You have cherubim on the inside on the parapet, and you have cherubim sitting on the mercy seat. So if God is saying, you ran away from me, you were kicked out, you were going that way, you want to know how you're going to get back. I'm going to give you a picture of what's happening in heaven. And you're going to come through an offering, but you're going to come through a specific gate. I'm going to go through this for Sukkot. And you're going to make your way back in to the place where I dwell. So in this time, it's as if almost God is pouring out His heart and He's saying, you know what, from the very beginning, all I wanted to do was walk with you. But you chose the opposite direction. I'm begging you and giving you a way back. This is a picture of things that are coming. And when God's all said and done, the end of it all, we will dwell with Him. Emmanuel. Right? Second thing I want to do is I want to bring you back to this before we close. Now, this P can also be rendered as an F. Why? Because Hebrew is complicated. You have something that you heard, a kapegah, which is an offering. Okay? This means to draw near to. Come on. So as I want to draw near to God, I have to get rid of the fence, the strong fence that is sin. I have to kick it over so that I can come into His presence. Okay? So to draw near to God, I have to come through with a kapera. If we go back a little bit, the same shoresh, the same root is used for Jacob and Esau. As Jacob is coming back, he sends gifts ahead of him so that his brother's anger will turn away. It became a protection, almost a covering. This will protect us. Because remember, it was through an offering that death passed over our house. Pesach. And the last one, there's hundreds of these, by the way. No. When the bitumen was painted on, the word there for covering is the same shoresh as that. To cover or protect. Because if that sealant wasn't on, what would have happened to the wood? So what lifts you up? What protects you? What keeps you safe? Same root as Yom Kippur. Your atonement is your covering, it is your protection, it is a layer that is there for you. It is what will turn away anger and what will keep you safe. What will bring you home? What will it cleanse? This word atonement doesn't cover it all. It is about you and Abba, your relationship, and how I'm going to stay safe in a time of judgment. How am I going to stay safe when people come against me? How am I going to draw near to Him to be able to sit at His feet? How am I going to get back to that walking with Him in Gan Eden? You've got to draw near to Him. You've got to come underneath His protection. You've got to have His covering. Look at this. Yeshua dealt with your sin. Then He went up. He ascended into the heavens. The last thing He says, He tells you, in your going, make disciples and teach them all that I have given you. Teach them to obey. And baptize them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Each time, He's just trying to bring you back to His function. It's like, you want Yeshua, you want salvation, you want to be saved? Let me. This is not just about you, this is about who God is and who He wants to be in your life. So you guys starting to understand these pictures? It's complicated, I know, and I haven't touched half of it. So if you're bombarded with a lot of information, just let it sink in a little bit. Go and do some research, go and read up about this, and look at the pictures. Because Yeshua is that sin offering. He is the one who's interceding. He is the high priest standing before God. He is the one who brings His blood. So that you can become a new creation. So you can come into the fullness of this relationship. So you don't have to worry about that. And I don't have time, and I want to do this for Sukkot as well. To discuss the applications of every piece in the sukkah, in this tabernacle, this mishkan, of how Yeshua fulfills it all. Most of all, guys, this is for you. I was having a discussion. It says, guys, when you come to this time of forgiveness, if you're struggling with yourself, you started off the year, God willing, if you went through Yom Kippur, you started off like this. Clean sheet. And then came Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and every little black piece you see here is a sin that you've marked up on. So your score sheet might look a little bit like that. It might look a little like that. It might look like one of those test pages where someone colors it in and it's completely black. I don't know where you are. What I promise you is this. God has said, if you are serious about this, if you will come to me, and you will stand up and you will say, Lord, I did that. That was all me. I made that mistake. I shouldn't have reacted that way. I shouldn't have put myself in that situation. I should have been better prepared for whatever it is. He says, I will make this look like that. And everything will be fine with me and you. Everything will be clean. You're good with your family, you're good with your friends. Now be good with me. Be clean. Let me cover you. Let me protect you. And then, when you go into Sukkot, and you spend time and you can celebrate for 8 days, you celebrate with a clean heart, knowing that you haven't disappointed your Father. You're celebrating at that time when you're looking to Him and you're going, you know what, Abba, this is amazing. I'm having the best time of my life. Why? Because I'm free of issues with man. I'm free. I know you look at me and you see me clean. But listen to me clearly. Do not hold on to things that you've confessed about yourself. If God has forgiven you, you need to let it go. That distraction is real. You need to let it go. You need to forgive yourself. Otherwise you hold yourself back. Yes, you're broken, but Aaron could not do his job unless he knew that God had anointed him for it. You will be cleansed, my boy. Go and take care of the people. You will be cleansed, my boy. Cleanse my tabernacle. Don't worry about that golden calf thing. You come into my presence with that blood. But Abba, who am I? It's not about you. It's about me. It's about my mercy. It's about my love. And it's about, I want you here. And they need to see that. They need to understand that love. And you need to go and tell them, I'm fine. How many of you thinking with tenterhooks that when he went in, some of them thought he's not coming out? Think about it. Nadav and Abihu. Last time they tried the story, it didn't end very well. And he went in, and when he came out and he was able to do the offering, and he would come out to the people and he would stand up and go, God says it's done. It's free. It's all over. Go and live a life that will give him glory. Don't be ashamed of your past. Don't be ashamed of what you've done. God doesn't see that stuff anymore. We do. The only time I will tell you to remember your mistakes is know where you're weak. I could not sit in a pub, because if I sat in a pub, I would have not just one, I would have 7. So I stayed out of a pub. It's very simple. Don't put yourself to the test in something that you know you're weak. Let God build you to the point when you get into that place and you say, you know what? I'm strong enough. Now I can go to the pub and I can have a cup of coffee. I'm not saying that I do sit in pubs, okay? But if I need to, I know within myself I can stand strong. Guys, I was standing outside, open arms, and he's saying, come home. He's saying, let it all go. Just do me a favor, forgive everything. I'm letting it all go. You need to as well. Forgive the people that have hurt you. They've been broken. They didn't know better. Forgive yourself. You've made mistakes, but I'm here and I love you anyway. But like any good father says, I want to protect you. And the only place you're safe is with Daddy. Come back. Let me cleanse you. Let me cover you. Let me protect you. Because with me there is love. Let me show you who you are. Tam?
Also, when you go through this time of forgiveness, you feel very raw. It does take time to heal. And I know that we have the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, which is that function of this. Because Yeshua ascended, he said it would be better that the Spirit was with us. So he was with us everywhere. So Yeshua is teaching us and comforting us through that time of letting go and asking forgiveness, because it is sore, hurts, sweat, it's separating our flesh from our spirit, I suppose. So, it's a process of, you see, don't hold yourself back by not like letting it go. Sometimes it just takes a bit of time for that healing to come. When you ask, working through forgiving yourself, it is a weak place. But you just got to keep remembering that you've asked for forgiveness. And God's forgiven you. You've done it the way God has said, and you've done it with your whole heart.
You know, it's funny. Satan will continually remind you of where you came from. You're useless, you're nothing. Remember when you did that? Ha 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 ha. You want to tell me that God's chosen you? Ah, please. There's a nice quote. Every time Satan reminds you of your past, remind him of his future. If God was so concerned with your past, why did he fetch you when you were there? He knew you were made for more. He knew you were better than that. And he came to show you a way to live it. This is not for sissies. It is tough. It is changing who you are. It is letting go of every hurt you've ever had. So that God can fix you. Become who you've been meant to be. Become the chosen nation. Become his sons and daughters. Become his Aaron. Become that high priest. I called you for this reason, but I'm not good enough. My boy, if you don't step into the gap, what about the people behind you? What about them? What about your kids? What about your families? What about the people that don't know God? And the only thing they understand anything about God is when they talk to you. This God of this Old Testament of wrath and judgment and rubbish must stop. The love of a Father gives us a get out of jail free card every year. And He's giving you an offering that doesn't run out. But you need to take ownership. You need to say, I don't want to be that anymore. And I want to move forward. I want to be God. I want to be on that ark. There's a time coming where it'll be like the times of Noah. Everybody does everything the way they want to do it, the way they want to do it, and they want God, or they want to get out of jail free God by wearing a little cross and living like the world. Keep a Bible on the shelf, it'll keep everybody at bay. The Bible on the shelf is not going to change you. It's not going to stop sin in your house. Those words need to be read, they need to be applied so that it can change. And if you're feeling a little sensitive at this time, it's normal. If you're feeling a little worthless at this time, it's only going to get more fun. But you need to let yourself go so God can make who you need to be. Step up. He loves you more than you ever realize. Uncle Jeff, you need to say something? Yeah, sure.
If, just a hypothetical thing, somebody in the family holds something against you, but you don't know for 20 years, and then you find out, and then you find out what it is. You find out that they say they won't forgive a person, but it's something that you would feel that you haven't offended them, you weren't aware that they offended them, and the cause that they have against you is something maybe that you haven't done, that they took offense, that you should have done.
You don't even need to elaborate.
They hold it against you, they won't forgive you.
There's two aspects that you've got to look at. Number one, just because you didn't know you were offending someone doesn't mean that they weren't offended. Okay? Let me tell you something. Someone cut you off in traffic, but he's completely oblivious, listening to the music, going and singing at the top of their voice. You're grumpy and you're shouting and you're having a bad time. They don't know, they don't care. Does it make the mistake any less? No. Once we find out about it, what do?
And if they don't want to forgive you,
That's
because
the second part.
They don't want explanation. How hard is it to say, I'm sorry I was the cause that you offended? Then on
That's the second part. You need to do everything you possibly can, and you ask for that forgiveness, and you say, look, I really didn't know. In the law, what happens is, how many of you have realized that people have had something against you that you didn't even realize it was a big thing for you, but for them it was? That happens. Okay? So once you find out, God says, remember, if your brother has something against you, go fix up. So if you go back to him and you say, look, I didn't realize. I really didn't intend it that way. I really didn't. I'm sorry. Then if they choose to hold on to that, it's in their court. It says in Scripture, it's a fearful thing to fall into the hand of other men. Simple fact of the matter is, you can go and you can do your part. Abraham interceded to get 10 righteous, the city will live. But they needed to have 10 righteous. They needed to show up. And that's the thing, guys. If you are holding on to unforgiveness on yourself, guess what? It's only hurting you. It's a horrible thing. You need to let them go, because their lives are carrying on as normal. If they are godly enough, they will come back to you and they say, look, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean it. I don't want to hurt you. And you make restitution. You will try. Is there anything I can do to make this right? If they still refuse point blank, you pray for them. Because if they don't let that stuff go, it's going to eat away. If you're remembering something that someone said or did 20 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, really? Who's moving forward? You're not. You're holding on to stuff and it's only going to hurt you. Look, that stuff is chametz. It's going to fester and it's going to grow and it's going to hurt. Here's a quick test if you're holding on to something. if you think of a person who's done something to offend you and you get that little knot in your stomach when you say the name and you start growling a little bit, that generally means you're holding unforgiveness. Oh, Tyler. Just using it as an example. Oh, he did this thing to me 14 years ago. Really upset. Really?
-1, wasn't
You have that thing where you have to let it go. And listen, this also becomes difficult if the person you're holding a grudge against is dead. So you go and you spend time with Abba and you say, I forgive you for what you've done. Let them be free. They're dead. They don't care. You are the one who's stopping your life from moving forward. You're the one who's harboring hate in their heart. And I'm not saying you're not justified. All I'm saying is it's self-destructive. Listen to me, guys. One of the hardest things you're going to ever come across, and I learned this with my dad. I read a book, it's called, I think it was Wild at Heart, right? I think it was John Elbridge or something like that. And he said something very profound that really struck me. So when he was growing up, he never realized what his father was going through. His father had his own issues from his dad, and he had his own past that he was dealing with, and he had his own sins that he was grappling with, and he was dealing with a lot of stuff. When you come and you look at your dad, well, it's Superman, let's just deal. Dad's not allowed to have a bad dad. He's not allowed to be scared. He's not allowed to be struggling. He's not allowed to be hurt from the past because I want. And your perception is from what you see. It doesn't make it true. People are struggling with their hurts. People are struggling with their pasts. You know, it's funny, the longer I walk in this walk and I counsel people, the more you realize that people mimic what they learned before them. You know? Listen to people and they say, oh no, well, you should have seen my father. He was a real rough oak. It's like, well, you're kind of like a cactus yourself. No, he was rough. It's like, so you're a toned down version of that? No. It's like, all of a sudden this prickly more like it must have been like some sort of hectic tree at the back there. And that was maybe because his daddy never showed affection to him. His parents weren't there for him. Maybe he was hurt in the past. And my heart breaks. Because all you do is mimicking the same cycle of what the person went before you. And my dad struggled with a lot of things. A lot of acceptance issues and all that stuff. And it's quite funny, his parents were the mayor and mayoress of Ellsberg twice.